You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the weekly Keep Canada Weird discussion series. If you're new here in Keep Canada Weird, my pal Handsome Aaron Airport and I seek out and explore some of the more offbeat news stories from the past week. In tonight's episode, which we recorded on the evening of November 28th, 2022, Aaron and I give Canada a fresh coat of absurd paint. Our discussion features 2 bad birds, 2 police F-ups, and the first Christmas-related story of the year. So let's get into it. Oh, Handsome Aaron Airport. It has been weird in Canada lately. Have you noticed?
No.
No? Have you heard what happened to our queen?
Actually, no, I haven't heard. What happened to the Queen?
I'll just want to cover it right off the top.
How does this affect our jobs?
It doesn't affect our jobs. We still have this mandate to keep Canada weird. Queen Ramona Digilo, the self-proclaimed Queen of Canada, she was in some hot water because she had an RV, like a motorhome that she was traveling around in that was rented, and the family that it was rented from was like kind of on Twitter and all these other places speaking out like, we want our RV back. The checks have bounced, bring us our RV back. And it was kind of getting nasty. It turns out they got the RV back just last week, and it was in the news because when the RV came back, it was damaged in a bunch of minor ways. But the Keep Canada Weird thing about it was full of empty sardine cans. And when I say full, like lousy with sardine cans. Apparently they're going to have to get the thing steam cleaned.
Yeah. Well, an RV can turn into a sardine can itself, depending on how many Queen followers you jam in there.
Yeah. Well, we don't need to dwell on it. I don't want to upset anyone. Let's move on with it. We have a goal here tonight. It's to keep Canada weird by way of highlighting and in some cases celebrating, in other cases shaking our fists at the stories that played out in our great nation over the past week. Before we introduce the stories and start breaking them down, though, I want to ask you something. How are you doing? What's new?
Oh, I'm doing good. I want to actually address a story we discussed off the top here. Last week, we covered a story about dead raccoons, or cadavers, as we like to call them. Littered throughout the streets of Toronto, right? So I took it upon myself to do some real boots on the ground research on this topic and on this story. So I was in Toronto. I went to Toronto this past week
on assignment
to go and see if I could find any raccoon cadavers whatsoever.
Okay, so you were thinking this could be fake news.
Yeah, there's something about it that just didn't sit well with me. So I went there.
And? I
didn't see a single one.
No way. So we've been had. Not
a single dead raccoon. I had my dead raccoon counter out, It's an app on my phone, and
beeps as you get closer.
Every time it senses, the app senses it, and it beeps and counts it, and there wasn't a single one. I don't have one to report.
That is nuts. Should we pull last week's episode then? Because we are peddling fake news.
I think our entire show needs to be pulled now and rebuilt from the ground up.
Wow. Okay, that is nuts. Shocking to hear that. I thought for sure you were about to tell me that there was mountains of them all over the place, just as that article last week made it sound.
No, I did not see a single dead raccoon or a live raccoon.
Here's something else. You talk about the dead raccoons from last week, and you brought that up. There's something I want to bring up. I got a voicemail. Let's play this, and we'll get in. Actually, let's tackle the voicemails from the front before we get into the stories. But I got one in particular that I'm so excited to share with you.
I can't wait.
We talked last week about the Brownies losing their name. or
Mm-hmm.
not losing their name, but dropping that name in favor of inclusivity and making everyone comfortable. And we both agreed with that decision. If it makes people happy, go for it. A listener, Stacy, has the following message where I think she raises some interesting points about Brownie's counterpart, the Beavers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's subtle. So let's see if you can pick this up.
Oh, I'll pick it up.
Jordan, longtime listener. Love all the stuff you guys do. Love the coverage of the massacres in Nova Scotia. But as to do with the Keep Canada Weird, my son was in the Boy Scouts when he first started out, when he was really little. He was in the group called Beavers, which is the group before Cubs. And in Beavers, he got his first tail. They get a tail pinned to their hat, and that means they can move up to the next level. So I just thought that was kind of funny that in Beavers they get a tail. They might want to look at changing that name to Beaver. All right, anyways, all the best, all of you. Keep up the great work. Bye.
So there's a couple double entendres there. So I get the joke about, beavers. Maybe they may want to change that name. And I get that. But I think what she was saying, and if so, this was very dry, her way of putting this out, was when you're in the Beavers, when you're kind of come of age and you get into the next group, you get a tail.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also, there's like a double entendre there.
Sure, there is. Yeah.
Do I have a sick mind and I'm reading into it too much? Or did she make two sexual jokes based on the Beavers and their practices?
I don't think we can legally even discuss this any further.
You're right. Let's drop it.
I think we should just drop it.
Stacy, you're sick.
Yeah. And
let's have a palate cleanser.
Yeah, please. Yeah, let's drink some club soda.
Hey, Jordan and Aaron, it's Donna. I just wanted to weigh in on the Tim Horton show idea. Guys, here's the thing. Keep Canada Weird works because of your interpersonal dynamics. Jordan is always in awe and full of wonder at the world, while Aaron kind of keeps things real and more grounded. So when you unite in your dislike of Tim Hortons, that balance is thrown off. So as a result, you kind of wind each other up, and well, I'm concerned for your blood pressure, really. I don't think we need a separate Timmy show. And I say this out of love and concern for your well-being. Just keep on keeping Canada weird for now. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of her assessment? I'm like lost in wonder and you're grounded?
I always thought it was, no, you know what? I don't know. Maybe. Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. That is not my perception of our friendship over the years.
No, I've always found it to be the opposite. But
and I am your rock.
You're my rock, yeah. I have a theory about, who is this, Donna?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, yeah. So Donna, I know what you're doing here. I know who you work for.
Oh my God.
I know what's going on. So Donna, you can tell the upper brass at Tim Hortons Co., where you clearly work, that we're not buying it, and we're not going to have the wool pulled over our eyes, and we will not be deterred from taking down what is officially an evil corporation, Tim Hortons.
So Donna, who poses as a listener but is in fact a Tim Hortons infiltrator, was sent here to keep us off the prize. This next caller, Jennifer, I think she is here to embarrass us and make us look bad. Listen to this.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting set up here, and I know it right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Aaron and Jordan. I'm calling from Fredericton, just outside Majorville, New Brunswick. And I listened with much interest at the backlash you guys received when you mispronounced Majorville. I think New Brunswickers have a bad habit of pronouncing place names much different than how they're spelled. And it's always annoyed me. I have another one for you. How would you spell Rusagonis? I dare you to try and get this one right. It's almost unbelievable how far out in left field it is. Good luck.
I want to listen to that spelling one more time.
Yeah, because I'm trying to visualize the word in my mind. So
Here, let's try it again.
How would you spell Rusagonis?
Rusagonis?
I've never heard of this place.
I've never heard of it, but I'm throwing out Rusagonis.
I'm going with Rusagonis.
Gonis, as in Gone with the Wind.
If it's not a real place and she's just saying letters, that's humiliating for us. If it is a real place, she's saying it because she knows we're going to mispronounce it and receive a second wave of backlash from New Brunswickers.
And then that will also lead us to determine that she also works for Tim Hortons.
And maybe she's worried about, she's a stockholder, maybe she's a franchisee for like a New Brunswick chain.
She's trying to take away our credibility because she knows that we're gaining traction with our anti-Tim Hortons campaign.
Rhetoric. And now that we're just now bouncing back from the Meagerville mispronunciation situation where we lost, I think, every single listener in New Brunswick. We're rebuilding that community from the ground up after that.
Yeah, totally.
We're almost there. Well, that's the listener mail for today. Let's get into the stories here. We got a full one, although it won't sound it by the title. I'm calling this episode Two Bad Birds, Two Police F-Ups, and a Bad Santa. A maybe bad, and a Santa. Let's keep it.
We don't know. We haven't seen his criminal record yet. So.
Let's start with the birds.
Yeah.
I like a good bird story, and this is kind of coming off of last week's episode where we did the owl, right?
Yeah. I just like that you said I like a good bird story. That's, just a good way to start it off, I think.
Yeah, we're on a high note.
Yeah.
Last week we did the owl that was burglarizing homes. Had that owl waited a week, we would have done like a bird special.
A full avian special.
Let's start with, do you prefer ostriches or peacocks? Would you know the difference? Could you draw either?
I don't care for either of them, to be honest.
Well, let's start with a peacock. This is the story of this was sent in by a listener named Christine. This is about a peacock in Vancouver.
After living in this downtown neighborhood for more than 30 years, David says this was a first.
It's like seeing a goldfish in a pool of blackfish. It's like, what is this doing here?
It was so unusual, Kirk says, it almost seemed like the setup for a joke.
Why did the peacock cross the road?
So unbelievable, Logan stopped hanging Christmas lights and started capturing it on camera.
Oh, there's a peacock running down the street.
But the sense of surreal fun quickly turned to very real fear for the peacock's safety.
It was getting tumbled about by the big wheels of the cars.
Like any moment he was gonna get smoked.
I just didn't want to see roadkill.
And that's when Logan announced he was going to pluck the peacock from its potential peril.
I said to him, watch your face. The bird's gonna poke his eyes out or something.
What David and Kirk didn't know was this was not Logan's first rodeo.
So I grew up catching turkeys and chickens.
When little Logan wasn't cuddling cute creatures on his family's hobby farm, he was practicing to be a prolific poultry picker-upper.
Just wanted to save this peacock's life, I suppose. So I grabbed the bird.
We basically went and corralled him into the back gated area behind our studio.
While Kirk and Logan kept the peacock safe, David started making calls. He was told the bird had likely wandered far from its home in Beacon Hill Park, but there was no official help available.
It's that do the right thing moment.
So David asked Logan to pick up the peacock again and carry it to his car.
He suggested that we put the peacock in his PT Cruiser.
With the PT now standing for Peacock Transportation, David committed to cruise the bird back home.
It kept watching me in the rearview mirror of the car, and I felt like I was in a French movie instead of, femme fatale, or, there was a peacock in the back seat.
As the duo drove across the downtown core, David says the bird pooped once and peered out the window often. He calmed down as they approached the park, and after David parked, popped out.
I wanted to hug it or commune with it, but it just, the bird kept going.
Perhaps to tell his feathered flock a joke that begins with a peacock crossing the road and ends with a punchline about a PT Cruiser and the kindness of strangers.
Would you put a peacock in your car?
Well, I lease my vehicle, so no, I wouldn't.
That would be a reason. I think this guy, David, he was a great guy. He did the right thing. I guess.
Yeah, no. Ultimately, yeah, the right thing was done. Protect the animal, get it to safety. I agree with all of that for sure. But I think more of the story is in the guy who drove the PT Cruiser.
Yeah, he expected this. He was kind of funny the way he put it out. He's like, expected the scene out of a French movie.
Yeah, it was like a French movie, but I think there's a real loneliness to this character.
Yeah,
that
like
I want to explore a bit outside of the peacock, right?
When he brings that, well, he did make a point to mention, like he wanted this like touching moment when they get there.
Yeah,
and the peacock
absolutely.
wanders off. Does he not realize it's just a bird?
Well, I think this is what happens to him with any connection he's tried to make in his life. And the metaphor here is the peacock itself, exposes its colors, to kind of attract a mate. I think this individual who drives the PT Cruiser has also tried to do this throughout his entire life and tried to show his colors or make connections with people and has been rejected every single time. And then finally, he drives this peacock who he thinks, this animal, I'm helping it, whatever. It's I can finally have a connection here. And then he went for a moment, like a hug or a goodbye with the peacock, but the peacock just left and didn't pay him any mind whatsoever.
So it happened again.
The real story here is this man, and I feel for him. I really do.
Yeah, this is a lot sadder story than I thought. I saw it as this whimsical, light story of a lost and found peacock, but no.
Well,
this is...
just before you say anything else, that really plays into our dynamic here on Keep Canada Weird, is you're up in the whimsical kind of atmosphere of these stories, whereas I'm grounded in the real, raw emotion of these stories, bringing it more down to earth.
Well, we're kind of like Mulder and Scully from X-Files.
Yeah, and I am definitely Scully.
Oh, man. Well, I think you solved that one. That's a sad story. Let's see your take on this one.
Okay.
I say we have two bad birds, two wild birds. Yeah, we'll call them bad birds. We just did a peacock. Let's go over, and that was in Vancouver. Let's go to BC for an ostrich, a much bigger, kind of scary looking bird.
After getting loose in the early hours of Thursday morning, Tabor RCMP were out helping a local ostrich farmer who's seen here trying to wrangle one of his birds from the passenger seat of a police car. This was shocking for most residents to see, especially considering the large birds are native to Africa, not southern Alberta.
Well, I was outside for a brief few minutes and I thought I was actually seeing things, and I noticed there was an ostrich running down the road. Not something you see every day, so it was really weird, but they ended up catching it.
RCMP received reports around 8 a.m. Thursday of multiple ostriches strutting around south of town. They were able to determine that approximately 20 had escaped. RCMP, along with the help of the Tabor police, spent the day tracking down and capturing the birds.
And today we had several calls that the ostriches were running around and on the streets. And outside on the highway. So we were assisting the RCMP. Most of the stuff happened out in our jurisdiction. We assisted them and helped them wrangle up some ostriches.
Around noon, RCMP said all but a couple of the ostriches had been captured.
Definitely made my day though. Started off a little rough, but it definitely made it better seeing an ostrich running down the highway.
As far as we know, officers are still out trying to locate any ostrich stragglers. However, residents are being asked to avoid them at all costs, as ostriches are known to be deadly.
At first I was surprised to hear them end it with like they're known to be deadly. Then I started looking at more pictures of ostriches, and they are big things with like big kind of claw feet thing. I feel like an ostrich could mess you up. 20 of them running around.
I agree. Yeah, I would never tangle with an ostrich.
No, 20 of them running around like small
They
town.
would own the city, really, because if they're as dangerous as they warn us that they are, and there's 20 of them. That's strength in numbers. I mean, these ostriches could really take over the city.
Of Tabor. They called in the RCMP. I think they should have called in the military.
Absolutely.
If they wanted to get them.
Yeah.
The video clip, for people who are listening and not watching, the video clip there was interesting. It was filmed by just some onlooker, and it's an RCMP like SUV kind of thing, like van, driving alongside the ostrich that's running down like a main street, and I guess the farmer or the owner of the ostrich is in the passenger side of the police vehicle, hanging out trying to grab the ostrich by the neck. That is quite the scene.
Yeah, probably not the regular Thursday that the officer was expecting. Yeah.
No, and they didn't get them all. So where are these other ones? Because it said they're native to Africa. So what's going to happen, when the temperature dips down?
I hope that they are able to get someplace safe and someplace that I don't know. Like, obviously these ostriches wanted out of where they were. They left. And they want to go home. So let's take them home.
Well, they got to get them off the street. A little kid runs into one of those things, and they're like, "Look, it's the tooth fairy."
Well, it's just nature taking back its territory.
Yeah, but is it not odd that there are, in Western Canada last week, really 3 separate stories that involve birds? Because that owl was like, just in the last 10 days, let's say, we had the owl who's robbing homes. We had 20 ostriches running around town, and we have the whole peacock situation. One thing I didn't get, to back up to the peacock, they find it walking around town. He brings it in his car and brings it to a park. But why would there be a peacock just at a public park? Wouldn't they be like in a zoo?
That part I didn't understand either, because I thought, again, escape from a zoo or some kind of a wildlife, park or something, but it was just a regular park.
Well, that's what it's like. In Halifax, we have the public gardens, which is like in the center of downtown. It's like a walking area, and there's a big pond with ducks and all this stuff. There's like a couple swans there, I think. But the peacock, it kind of looked like where they brought it was kind of a place like that, like a public kind of park in town. Anyway, it's weird. The ostriches I don't understand either. What would they be for? I guess like a zoo or something.
A zoo. I could only see them being at some kind of a wildlife zoo.
Do you need 20 at a zoo? Would that not be just a bunch of ostriches?
Maybe they're creating an army of ostriches and
they're breeding them.
And trying to, maybe they'll bring them back to where they should be.
And no, I think this is
I just want the ostriches to be happy. I just don't want, if they're not happy where they were and they left, they need to go somewhere where they're happy.
Yeah. I think it's a test run. I think that farmer brought 20 ostriches to see what kind of terror he could wage against Tabor. Maybe it didn't go quite well, and maybe in a couple of years he's going to come back with 40 of them, and this will be a whole different story.
You're thinking these ostriches are like the winged monkeys from, the Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think things in Tabor are not going to be good in 5 years when he gets those numbers up to 50, 100.
The evil king or the evil witch sends out their violent ostriches to just absolutely annihilate any who does not follow blindly to the king.
I want to use this story of police chasing ostriches around town to serve as a segue into the next duo of stories we have. Both involve police F-ups. We've been a little bit light so far. These next 2 stories can take a bit darker turn though. So let's tiptoe into this carefully. But we got 2. Do you want to hear about the misidentified body or the keyless handcuffs? Where should we start this?
Let's go with the body.
Okay. This one, it gets dark. This is a story that's been playing out in New Brunswick over the past week. And it's been playing out in a series of news articles. But what I found kind of interesting is the news articles aren't necessarily referencing each other. You'll see as we go here, I'm going to play 2 different clips as we talk. Both are covering the same dead body that was located, but 2 altogether different aspects of the story. Neither article is referencing each other. So let's start here. This is, anyone who knows what we're talking about will know this aspect of the crime. And this is where the police really F up in a completely unimaginable way. I never would have ever expected something like this could happen. Listen to this.
Good evening. Moncton family is speaking out tonight after enduring a horrible ordeal. They were told their son was dead, only to find out hours later it wasn't him. Steph, look, what happened here?
Todd, Donna Price received the heartbreaking news in the early hours of Tuesday morning that her son had died. She was told her son was the person found dead inside the public washroom outside Moncton City Hall very early Tuesday morning. Over the next 13 hours, Price and her husband gathered with family and friends at their home to share in their grief and start the process for funeral arrangements. Late Tuesday afternoon, she says someone was sent to her son's home to collect belongings and paperwork required by the coroner's office, only to discover her son was in fact alive.
I remember screaming and jumping, but it felt like I was in a time warp or a movie or a bad joke, or I can't even explain. Like, I had this grief, which is insurmountable pain. You can't even describe the pain you feel. 13 hours, he's alive.
There's an opportunity for someone in charge in Moncton at Kodiak to step forward and, like I said, apologize, show some compassion, ensure the public that this can't happen, it shouldn't have happened, and that maybe some discipline or other measures would be undertaken. Some assurance that this isn't commonplace or is to be expected. It just can't be.
At this point, there's been no legal action taken. The New Brunswick RCMP says it is aware of this matter and is in communication with family members about the situation. It says because it may soon be part of a legal process, it would be inappropriate to comment on evidence or other aspects that may be part of judicial or internal proceedings. And Todd, police have not released the identity of the person who was found dead.
What the heck?
Yeah.
They got a lawsuit on their hands. They can't make that kind of mistake.
I just, and listening to the story, I can't understand how that mistake is made. Like, do they ever, did I just miss that? Or
No,
do they never explain it?
When questioned, it seems like the RCMP didn't want to comment on anything because it looks like it's a case that may lead to civil proceedings, i.e. getting sued. So they're probably shutting their mouth. I'm sure that they must have told the family how that mistake has been made, but how could it be made? The only thing I could think of is maybe they found a body and it had like someone else's wallet in its pocket or something, and with an ID that happened to look like them, because it's not like this was this body that's been, its skeletal remains out in the woods or something like that. This is someone found outside a city hall that had died the night before. Like, you would think that'd be they'd be able to accurately ID it before they went to the point of notifying this family. Mm-hmm. And they let them, the family's at the point of beginning to plan funeral arrangements. And I'd love to know how they found out their son was alive.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also kind of like they didn't interview the son who was alive, who turned out to be alive. Where is he?
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing I was wondering was this body is found. They mistake it for this woman's son. They tell her son is dead. They then realize that that's not her son. And then they say, no, it's not your son. Your son is still alive. But you would think that her still alive son would make some appearance of some kind, or how there's a lot of missing pieces here.
Certainly. But one thing I do know from all the episodes that I've done over the years of this podcast is the police aren't quick to notify next of kin when there's a death. Like, it's something that they are slow and methodical, and it's not the kind of thing they find someone and they just call up the family and let them know what's happening. Mm-hmm. It just seems like I would just love to know the story. If this does go to court and there's lawsuits or whatever, the truth will come out, or the story will come out. I just can't imagine how this could happen. But
no,
at this point, we're already thinking, it's a failure of the RCMP, or of policing. A mistake was made, and this kind of thing should never have happened. there's other layers to this story that the news pieces about the misidentification of the body aren't getting at. This here is a separate clip I'm going to play you, and this one is different in tone for sure. It's a piece of an interview with a social worker who had been interviewed by CBC because she had sent an email or letters to all these high-ranking politicians and media letting them know that New Brunswick is in a crisis for shelters and for people to stay who are dealing with mental illness or addiction. And the point of this letter that they sent out was this social worker was recounting that the night before she tried to get help for someone who visited her like emergency center, she wasn't able to help them, and she found out that they died overnight. So we're talking about the same body, the same person.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the other side of what happened to this person before they misidentified the family. So it's another level of failure we're going to hear about.
We are in a crisis in our downtown area with individuals. Please step up. Please acknowledge there's a part of the population amidst this opioid crisis that needs some extra help. They're New Brunswickers. I keep calling them the forgotten New Brunswickers. So anyways, I sent another one, nothing happened. And then I sent one Monday, expressing my concern and frustration at what we had just gone through trying to find shelter for this gentleman, and explaining the grave danger that he would overdose and possibly die overnight. And then, of course, what our greatest fear was became reality. So I then, on Tuesday, sent a message to the minister and all of the MLAs to tell them what had happened. And I haven't heard one word from them. Not one word.
Yikes, eh?
Mm-hmm.
How could it happen? How can things be so bad that someone goes to like an emergency shelter? They're in such a state that the people running the emergency shelter are like, we need to get this person somewhere to stay. They're going to die tonight if they don't. They're not able to find help for this person after reaching out to several resources. The person ends up dying outside of City Hall in Moncton, a major Canadian city. The next morning, when he's found, police misidentify him, tell the wrong family that their kid died. Like, those two things happen together. And then what I've since learned, I don't have a clip for this to air, but they did accurately identify the guy after all this happens. And it turns out that he was someone who had been released from prison just the day before. And he was released without winter clothes or anything, and he had nowhere to go. So he's just kind of like, he must be an addict, I'm guessing, because they bring up opioid addiction. But it seems like he has no winter clothes or winter coat. It's cold. He goes to an emergency shelter, can't get the help, dies, misidentified. Like, what a crazy string of events.
It's horrible because, you know, in death you at least hope that people will get a little, I don't know, respect, I guess, like more kind of like it just the indignity of how this happened to this person. Yeah, like leaving prison, like that's supposed to be, you know, you've paid your time, you're going out into the world now to start your life, and to not even be given a winter coat when it's freezing out. And no place to go, and absolutely nothing. Like it's just like they completely gave up on this person.
Well, you just there's a statement you hear a billion times with the idea of like falling through the cracks. This person fell through a few cracks, and then when the RCMP go to pick up the pieces, you know, they screw it up as well. So it's just, man, it makes me. We should change the name from Keep Canada Weird to Make Canada Better. I would go with make.
I think by keeping Canada weird, we are making Canada better.
Yeah.
In the long run.
So this is a dark, horrible situation we just talked about. There's another one that played out involving police effing up. This is in Quebec, though. So this isn't the RCMP. They have their own police force over there in Quebec. This story also blows my mind. Will likely, I hope, end in a lawsuit of some sort. But at least this story ends with a bunch of police who messed up, standing around feeling foolish and being filmed while they're doing it. Here's what happened in Quebec.
Montreal police are facing questions tonight about a video circulating widely on social media. It shows a man being arrested after he was accused of stealing his own vehicle. Matt Grillo explains.
The man in this video is visibly upset while speaking to two plainclothes police officers. With handcuffs on, he questions police. Is it because I'm black, he asks. After a few minutes, police inform the man they can't take his handcuffs off because they don't have the key. Eventually, an officer shows up to unlock the handcuffs. It's an embarrassing moment, says Alain Babineau, a former RCMP officer.
Losing one's handcuffs key it's never a pleasant thing. I mean, these things do happen.
Babineau is now part of a group called the Red Coalition that works to combat racial profiling. And he says the officers in the video showed a lack of empathy.
The person was arrested, was placed in handcuffs, and, that for the average person on the street, that's quite traumatic.
In a series of tweets, Montreal police say two investigators noticed a Honda CR-V that appeared to show marks of an attempted theft. While investigating, police say a citizen showed up, and officers, they say, placed that person under temporary arrest. In the video, the man tells police the vehicle is his.
There's something in policing, in our policing culture, that says we're never wrong. And that to me is to the detriment of the profession as a whole. We make mistakes.
Human rights group CRAR recommends the man should consider filing a complaint with the Police Ethics Commissioner.
For the commissioner to gather all the evidence in a more objective manner, in a more independent manner.
And Foniemi says there are other complaints the man could also look into.
He can also file a complaint with the Human Rights Commission if he believes that race, his being black, certainly played role in the way that he was treated.
A spokesperson for Quebec's public security minister says the video raises a lot of questions, and the minister will look into what happened.
So that's another one where we're short on some of the details, but in the end, we have a guy getting arrested for outside of his car on suspicion of stealing his car. Somehow during this whole temporary arrest, I in my head, I can't imagine how this plays out in a way that ends up with him in handcuffs. If police are like, oh, because he wasn't in the car. They saw signs that the car had been stolen or trying to be stolen.
Yeah, it had maybe it was kind of like scratch marks or something, like where the key would go, or I don't know.
I don't know what it could be, but needless to say, he walks over and he's like, that's my car. Somehow he ends up in handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
And then they don't have the keys. It's like, how the heck can that happen?
Well, keys are small.
Yeah,
I'm sure they can fall out of your pocket and down into a sewer hole or something. Who knows?
I've never heard of this happening before, and when you watch the video, or even just look at the still images, the car owner's handcuffed, very upset, walking all over the place, and the cops are just standing there, just looking like
there's not much we can do now. We don't have keys.
You're gonna have to wait.
I really wanted to put somebody in handcuffs today, and I forgot to check if I had keys.
I was just so anxious to get him cuffed.
Yeah.
What about?
I'm wondering, normally, they'd run the license plates on this. I'm trying to figure out how they get from, we think this car's been stolen, this gentleman comes up, and then they put him in handcuffs. But wouldn't they run the license plates?
Yeah, or just
his name would come up, they'd look at his ID, and it would be like, okay, that's him.
Mm-hmm.
How does it get to the handcuffs?
Yeah, even in that situation, even if it came up as a total different person, it comes up as, Wendy Jones, like a short blonde-haired girl or something like that. he still is just like some guy walking up saying it's my car. Like, why would they? Who would be foolish enough to walk up to the police and try to trick them into allowing them to?
If I stole a car and then I saw the police standing around that car, I go in the opposite direction. I'm like, oh, they found the car I stole.
The only thing I can think of is that maybe he like locked his keys in the car, and you've seen people who lock their keys in the car and they're like trying to feed stuff down on the window to pick the locks and get their car open, or like I think I've seen people putting like a video of someone putting a bunch of duct tape on the window and pulling it down so they can get it open a bit so they can reach their hand in and unlock the door. Maybe he too had lost his keys in the car. He was trying to get the window open to get in to his car. The police approach him thinking he's trying to break into a car. And somehow in that situation, he ends up getting cuffed. But if so, that would be an even more interesting story where they both lost their keys or something. And if that was the case, I think the reporter would have leaned on that.
I think that would have been the main focus of the story at that point, where nobody had their keys and everybody's stuck.
So the jury's out then. I don't know what the hell's happening here. How did this guy end up in cuffs?
I can't understand how it would escalate to that scenario when this is his car. And if it is his car, like, his name is attached to the plates. I don't understand how it could,
But even if it isn't, he's like, would he not have his keys? And he's like, it's my car. I can open it right now.
Yeah.
Like, I could prove it's my car. I'll open it and get in it and show you, like, my stuff is in there.
Yeah.
It has an iPhone charger. I have an iPhone. My keys open that car. There's more to this. Well,
there's certainly...
There's more than more to this. There's way more to this.
We always have to kind of view these things in a lens of where we don't know what happened before and after this video.
I don't know what happened during.
Yeah, that's also true. I don't know what happened during either.
Yeah, what a weird thing to be in the news.
Yeah. But I think technology hasn't developed very far with handcuffs, has it? Because we have so many different ways to replace keys in our society. Like, there's cars with fingerprints, or it's just a control from a smartphone or whatever. You would think handcuffs would move a little further with technology than they have. It's still a tiny little key to open up the handcuffs, and if you lose that key, you can't open them.
Yeah, it's true. Well, even people like the keyless entry for your car, for your house, like a lot of people are getting rid of for your front door. You put in a code or do whatever. Yeah, I think this is a wake-up call to manufacturers of handcuffs. Get with the times.
Yeah, this one incident needs to change the entire industry of handcuff making.
Speaking of one incident changing an entire industry. No, that's not a good segue. Thinking
hold for editing and start again.
Hello, listeners. Sorry to pull you out of the episode like this, but I want to take a moment and remind you of the benefits of a nighttime premium feed subscription. First of all, I release the episodes ad-free and 2 days early on the premium feed, which gives you the show quicker and a lot less painfully. Secondly, I maintain a full back catalog of nighttime episodes and countless hours of bonus content only on the premium feed, so to give you more of the show than any sane person would probably even want to listen to. And the third thing, premium feed subscribers who do so annually get a discounted rate and receive a free swag pack by mail. Who doesn't love mail? And lastly, but hopefully most importantly, the premium feed will fund the creation of the show. My mics, my laptop, the little lights on my desk, it's all paid for by the combined efforts of the premium feed subscribers. So if any of this sounds good to you, for about the price of a cup of coffee, you can go premium right now at patreon.com/nighttimepodcast. I want to thank you for considering it. Now, let's get back to the episode. let's get to the next story.
Oh, that's a really good transition. I like that. Yeah.
We're recording this on November 28th. You know what's right around the corner, right?
Yeah, November 29th.
December. And you know what's in December?
Oh.
Malls across this country are already jammed with people. It's going crazy. It's going to be crazy for the next month and a half. Because even after Christmas, there's returns, there's exchanges. Malls, Costco, Shoppers Drug Marts, any store is going to be wild. But you know what else is going to be happening at malls? Santa's helpers are going to be wearing Santa-styled outfits. Kids are going to be sitting on their laps, telling them what they want for Christmas this year.
So can we just pause for a second? You said Santa's helpers. What do you mean by that?
Well, Santa can't be everywhere at once.
But he is everywhere. He's magical.
Well, a part of the magic is the network of people that Santa has helping him. We call ourselves elves, and we will do things like dress up for Santa and serve as his fill-in at the mall. Not dress up.
Dress up for Santa.
Not for him. Yeah. But not for
Santa's
him
eating his supper, then you just come in dressed up for him. It's like you have to entertain him and like do a dance for Santa.
All right. If anyone is listening to this episode around kids, they may want to hit pause or lower the volume. I'm going to get personal with something. So I often have my 10-year-old son sitting in on these episodes, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a week, 2 weeks ago, we're like getting ready for bed. And he tells me, it's like, I want to talk to you about something, Dad. And I was like, oh, what's going on? And he told me that he's getting a little stressed out because a lot of kids at school are talking about how Santa's not real. And he doesn't know what to think. And he's like, anytime Christmas comes up or Santa comes up, I get nervous because I don't know what to believe. And, some kids in my class believe in it. Some kids in my class say it's not real, and it's causing a big rift. And it's stressing me out. And I said, do you want to know, do you want to talk about it? Do you want me to tell you the whole story? And I knew it was it was a dad moment. I just got into it. And he said, yeah, I think it's time that I know for real. And so I had to do some serious dadding. This is him and I laying in bed at 9 o'clock with the lights out. I'm about to tell him goodnight, and we start this conversation. And the way I explained it to my son, and I'm quite proud of myself because I came up with this on the spot.
Well, I'll decide. But
I didn't want to say it's fake. We've been lying to you. We go to Walmart and buy this crap and put it under the tree and pretend it's Santa. The way I pitch it to him is that Santa is not a real person. It's this kind of idea that all the adults and retailers and parents and shopkeepers, we all kind of collectively do Santa. And we do it by being helpers of Santa. And here's where I'm getting with this Santa helper thing. As I said to him, and anyone who knows the secret has to be in on the magic and has to be one of Santa's helpers. So I said to him, so you have a little brother, because I also have a younger child who isn't ready to have this talk yet. And I said to my older son, I said, your way of helping Santa and taking part in the magic and keeping the magic alive is being excited about Santa around your younger brother so that he can experience it. But other people, maybe the way they contribute to Santa is they dress up in a costume and go to the mall, or they pretend they're Santa and they're in a parade waving. And I said, so everyone in on the secret is one of Santa's helpers. And now you have to be one of Santa's helpers. And he was like, that makes so much sense. And, he's all for it. And in fact, having that talk, I was kind of thinking I was a little sad, oh my God, Christmas is going to be different. But for him, he has it's made him excited about Christmas because he sees it as I'm, Santa's helper and I'm going to take
civil
part.
duty.
Yeah. And so whenever his little brother's around and any Christmas thing comes up, he just puts on a show about how excited he is. So anyway, that's why I was saying these people at the mall are Santa's helpers and dress up. Anyway, all that personal stuff and fatherhood behind us. The idea of a strange man at the mall with children sitting on their lap is something I'm not entirely comfortable with. How do you feel about this?
I think it's problematic as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've played Santa Claus a number of times throughout my theatrical career.
Mm-hmm. But playing him on stage, or like interacting with children that you didn't know?
Not playing him on stage, not interacting with children. No.
Okay. But I think that's where the difference is. Playing him on stage is one thing, but when you're like sitting alone with a kid on your lap that you don't know, and it's just weird.
The only time it got weird for me was there was one point in time, this is many years ago, I was hired to play Santa Claus for a dollar store Christmas party.
Like a dollar store employees are having a Christmas party.
Yes, yeah. So I was hired to come in as Santa Claus. It was at a Dooley's pool hall.
Oh my God.
In Nova Scotia.
Of course you were.
Yeah. And so I went in, and it was my job to give out the Christmas presents from head office or whatever.
Okay. What is it? A bunch of cigarettes you're passing everyone? Like I'm just picturing the way this scene is playing out.
Well, I don't know what was in the gifts. I didn't open them, but I had to sit in the chair, and then every employee
was adults on your lap?
Yeah, I had to come and sit on my lap, and I would give them their gift and like take a photo with them, and be jolly and whatever.
Well, you're perfect for that. Doing it with adults, it's different.
But even that, I guess the reason that I wanted to tell that is that even that I felt creepy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I was doing it, I'm like, I don't enjoy this. It doesn't feel right having people sit on my lap and behave in this way. I wasn't comfortable with it. But
so I think we both feel the same way about the idea of Santa. If we see the idea of Santa having strangers sit on his lap at the mall or at the Dooley's pool hall, if you saw a photo circulating of a couple police officers and security guards arresting a mall Santa, where would your head go?
I don't want to talk about it.
A photo comes out and they say, of your home mall, in your case, we're talking the Mayflower Mall, Santa's being arrested. I believe you would have thoughts that
you immediately go to some kind of
something bad happened.
Something bad, yeah.
Here's where the story kicks in.
Cadillac Fairview Polo Park is apologizing tonight for what it's calling a misguided and unfortunate prank involving its mall Santa Claus. Video and photos shared on social media today show Santa Claus being handcuffed by a pair of security guards in front of his display inside the mall. In a statement, the mall is apologizing to guests, the community, and families for the, quote, error in judgment. It adds the arrest was made in jest by the center's staff. Winnipeg police are also taking to Twitter to calm concerns, saying officers did not attend Polo Park and Santa was not arrested. CTV News has reached out for comment from the security company, and we are waiting to hear back.
What the hell were they doing?
I can see the humor in it. I mean, they were. It was a joke, right? It was a joke. They were like, "Oh, let's go and arrest him in front of everyone, and it'll be a laugh."
I guess so. Someone was filming it because when you look at the photos and stuff that are circulating, because it's like people in the mall were taking pictures of what looked like Santa getting arrested in front of his display. There's like a couple security guards kind of cuffing him, and then there's someone standing next to them with a phone. So maybe they were like filming like an ad or something, or they were doing.
I'm sure it was somebody trying to get content for their TikTok or whatever it is that people do with their free time these days. But I mean, it is funny.
How is it funny? I think it's weird.
Oh, really? I mean, it's pretty funny seeing Santa arrested, don't you think?
I guess, but there needs to be kind of like that needs to be like a punchline, or there needs to be a setup.
That is the punchline. He's Santa Claus, and he's he's the jolly one. He's Christmas, all wrapped up in a red suit.
I suppose, but then
seeing him being arrested is not. You imagine, what did Santa do? What type of behavior and debauchery did he get up to?
Well, we're talking what Santa did is different than what the mall Santa did. Because I just think like this man has kids sitting on his lap all day. It's pretty obvious what likely happened. Either he has a warrant issued, like the actor inside Santa either has a warrant issued for his arrest for something, or he did something that day.
It's the visual. It's the visual of Santa being, handcuffed in the mall and let out, and
my mind.
It's a very interesting visual.
It certainly drums up. It's certainly an evocative image that drums up a lot of bad thoughts.
It's got, I guess, I guess it can be looked at in a very disturbing way, but if I were to see Santa arrested, I would think the actor himself is a train wreck and, has priors and I don't know, whatever.
Shouldn't even be around children.
But he's a discount Santa. Similar to how I was for the dollar store.
Certainly. But when in thinking about this, thinking it through a few different ways, I think the people, if like it was a prank that was gone wrong, whatever the prank was or however they wanted to use the content, I'm sure at the time they weren't thinking that people walking by in the mall were going to be taking pictures being like, hey, look, Santa's getting, like the guy who plays Santa's getting arrested.
Well, they clearly didn't think this through very well, because that's what happens when anything happens, is people are videotaping it and photographing it and uploading it to social media instantly. And then it snowballs from there.
Man, what a mess. But when I found the story and decided to talk about it here and Keep Canada Weird, I thought there's going to be a lot of Christmas stories and Santa stories. And this has given me a lot of ideas for our Christmas special. And I think, I don't know what kind of content there would be for this, but I bet you there's a lot of Canadian news stories about mall Santas. Either news stories or just weird events involving mall Santas or Santa kind of impersonators. I challenge anyone out there listening or watching that knows of a story from their community that involves Santa in one way or another. I'd love to hear of it.
Or, and maybe not specifically Santa, maybe some elves are involved, or reindeer, or
Mary Claus. Is their first name Mary? Mrs. Claus?
It's theorized that it could be Mary.
But that's just, because...
But there's no official first name for
it
Mrs.
seems
Claus.
weird because the where Santa, like the world Santa lives in versus like the world that like Jesus and all that happens, I don't really get where the lines are drawn. But is not Jesus's mother Mary and Santa's wife is Mary? Like, are they in the same kind of,
but
like,
the Mary
universe?
thing is just something that people started saying, like, his last, Christmas, Merry Christmas, like that's kind of the...
Okay. I went to high school with someone named Merry Christmas,
Yeah. I believe you.
Mm-hmm. The Christmas is a common last name.
It is a common last name. And, so some people, like I did do a little bit of research on the first name of Mrs. Claus when I was writing a Christmas show to see, like, does she actually have a first name? And some people said they think it's Mary, but there was no real official story behind it. It was just some people.
Coca-Cola hasn't decided what her name is yet.
Well, the whole kind of look of Santa Claus really comes from Coca-Cola.
Oh, yeah. Well, just getting back to talking to my son is like, we had that talk one night, and then he became more comfortable with the idea. And a couple nights later, he's been asking me more and more questions like, is the Easter Bunny the same thing? And actually, this was funny. We were talking about the Easter Bunny, and I was telling him, like, Good Friday and Easter Monday. He asked, like, what that's all about. Why do we celebrate that? And I was like, well, Good Friday was the day that Jesus was murdered. And he's like, shouldn't they call it Black Friday? Like, shouldn't that be Black Friday?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I guess like that should be Black Friday. It was not a Good Friday. It was an awful Friday for, Christians. But anyway, in talking about all that, we were talking about, he was asking how Santa started. And I was like, I don't know if anyone even knows, but I told him, I said, I think the version of Santa that we draw and have on TV and dress up as actually comes from Coca-Cola ads from, like, the 1890 or something. And we went on my phone and we started looking at the old ads, and before Coca-Cola ads had this kind of like jolly fat Santa, he was actually kind of creepy looking. He was just kind of like this big kind of old man, looked more like a king than
someone
Santa.
you would imagine maybe in cuffs. Well, you know, we all have our time that we find out that Santa is complicated.
I don't remember ever learning. I don't remember believing.
I remember exactly when I found out.
You and I both have older siblings. Did you learn from your older sibling?
You know how leading up to Christmas when you're young and presents start showing up under the tree from like relatives and things like that, leading up to Christmas, and it gets very exciting. So like every now and then you'll see a couple of new things under the tree, and it's like, oh, that's from my aunt or that's from my uncle or whatever. So I saw a couple new things and I picked one up, and it was addressed to my sister from Santa Claus. And this was like maybe a week before Christmas or something. Yeah. And so I got really confused, and my sister and my mom were in the bathroom, and my mom was doing my sister's hair, and I ran in. I said, Mom, there's a present to Heather under the tree, but it's from Santa Claus. That doesn't make any sense. And then my other sister looked at my mom with these eyes like, can I just tell him, is what she said out loud. And I was like, tell me what? And then she just looked at me. She's like, he's not real, you know.
Oh, my God. She was not being Santa's helper. She wasn't doing her job.
No. So that fried my brain for a bit, but I got over it pretty quickly.
We got a whole month to get into and highlight Christmas stories. We're not going to go crazy about it, but we're going to talk about Christmas.
No. But we will find an episode to really focus our Christmas powers.
You know who is going crazy about it? Tim Hortons.
Children all over the world.
Children all over the world. Tim Hortons has a bunch of Christmas stuff going on. There's 2 separate radio stations in Halifax that are already Christmas music 24 hours a day.
The hotel that I stayed at in Toronto, Christmas music 24/7 in the lobby and in the lounge.
Pumped into every bedroom.
24/7, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, let's wrap this up, Aaron. I think we fulfilled our mandate tonight. We addressed the fake news. We're going to see what that does to us, to the series. The fake news being the death in the piles of dead raccoons in Toronto. Not true. You've heard it here. We'll see what next week brings. Aaron, until then.
Jordan, until next time.
Be a good helper for Santa.
Yeah, man. Why don't you just stop lying to your kids?
And revolutionize handcuffs.
Yeah, just maybe Bluetooth handcuffs.
I want to thank you for helping Aaron and I fulfill our Keep Canada Weird mandate. But let us also call out to you for even further support. If something unusual happens in your town, please let us know. And the best way to do so is by sending a voice memo via nighttimepodcast.com/contact. We hope to hear from you there. Now, before we part, let me give some thanks. A big thanks to Aaron for sharing another evening with me and with you, the listeners of Nighttime. A shout out to the internet's favorite cult leader, Unicole, who supplies the intro and outro voiceovers for this series. And lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you to everyone who listens, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. Now, on the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers of the premium feed. Christine, Daryl, and Ben, thank you for your generous support. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show but can't do it financially, you can give me a big hand by simply sharing this episode on social media and letting some like-minded friends know what we're doing here. If anyone has any story ideas, wants to give feedback on this episode, or contribute a voice memo to be aired and responded to in an upcoming episode, you can do all that and more at nighttimepodcast.com. Aaron and I hope to hear from you. But until then, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let me know if you see anything weird.
The Nighttime Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Jordan Bonaparte. Copyright Jordan Bonaparte.